Hi everyone and welcome to the fourth episode. Now that we understand the basics, let's explore the core concepts behind the reason why NextJS is truly a powerful framework. By the end of this episode, you will have learned how static site generation works behind the scenes, both with and without data, and also how to import that external data using getStaticProps. I've covered the basics of pre-rendering in episode 1. In this episode, we're going to build on that knowledge. Static site generation, or SSG for short, is a form of pre-rendering and it can be done with or without data. By default, all pages that do not require any form of data fetching are statically generated when the application is built for production. But you may run in the case that your page does need to fetch external data to be built properly. An example could be a blog article that needs to fetch the content inside of it. For this scenario, NextJS offers SSG with data. How this process differs from SSG without data is that all pages that require data fetching to be built will first fetch the needed information, then insert it into the HTML file and store the result. This process will happen only once when the application is built for production. Let's see how this will look in practice. To fetch data for a static page when it is built, the getStaticProps function is used. The skeleton of this function looks like this. It's usually placed in the same file as the component we want to fetch data for. In this example, it's for a component named home. I've also added the getStaticProps return type in order to make it type safe. So far, the function is empty. But inside of it, we can fetch data coming from many sources, such as the file system, an API, a database, and so on. An example will look like this. We can use the await keyword to wait for the result, since the function is asynchronous. The fetch data function is just a generic example of a function that we would build to fetch external data. We'll see a concrete example in our code in just a bit. Lastly, the getStaticProps function returns an object containing the props passed to the component. Now, inside of the home component, we have access to props.data and can work with it. Essentially, this whole process allows you to tell NextJS, this page has data dependencies, so when you pre-render this page at build time, make sure to resolve them first. Again, the benefit of fetching data using getStaticProps is that the data is fetched at build time, not when the user requests the page. Therefore, the user can see the page instantly without waiting for any data to load. On the other hand, if you're using a Create React app, you'd be using client-side rendering and have to wait for the data each time. Let's see how to statically generate a page in our project. For this example, I'm going to use the movie database API to fetch a movie with all of its data. In order to do so, we have to generate an API key from their website by creating an account. This process takes less than a minute. First off, go to themoviedb.org, create a new account and verify your email. Then, log in with your credentials, click on your profile icon in the upper right corner and select Settings. From the left menu, click on API and then generate a new API key. Lastly, select Developer and fill out the form that appears. After you've completed the process, you should see somewhere on your screen an API key that looks like this. Awesome, now we can continue with the project. If you do not have the code, you can clone it from the GitHub repository by selecting the episode 3 branch. First off, open up VS Code. Let's go to movie.tsx. I'm going to use the getStaticProps function to fetch data for the movie page. Under the component, write the empty function. Let's fetch a movie from the API and pass the result to the movie component. To do so, I'm going to use the native fetch function to fetch the movie with an ID of 550 from the movie database API and transform the result to a JSON format. For security reasons, you don't want other people to see your API key. But for simplicity, we're going to keep it here. Lastly, we have to pass the fetched movie as props to the component. Awesome, now the component needs to be able to accept the incoming data. For that, above the movie component, define a new type for the incoming data. I will also create a new file named types.ts from which I will export the type for the movie properties. I'm putting this type in another file in order to make it more reusable. In this case, we're looking at only two properties of the movie, its title and the release date. In the future, we'll add more properties. Back in the movie.tsx file, import the movie props type. Then, deconstruct the props in the parameter of the function. In this case, we're expecting to receive a prop named movieData. And that's it. Now we have access to the movie prop inside of the component. Let's display the movie title and its release year. Save the file and start the dev server if it's stopped. Open the browser and go to the movie page. Nice, everything is displayed correctly. But you may have noticed that the movie page did not load instantly. This is because in development mode, every page uses server-side rendering instead of static generation. So the data is filled in when the user requests the page. As you've seen previously, static generation happens when the application is built for production. So let's do that and see if there's any difference. Run this command to build the app for production. After the command has finished running, the production build will be in the .next folder. To run it, use the command npm run start. Now, the local server will simulate a production environment. If we open the browser and go again to the movie page, you'll see that the page loads instantly on click. In the next episode, we'll explore how to create a page for each movie in our app using dynamic routes. See you there.